How's it going, everyone? It's Jeff Chrysler here, a detail enthusiast and owner of Right Way Heritage Trimming. And here we have our next project. Just arrived in from the mainland, Vancouver. It's this 65 Austin Healey BJ8. So I've already got a BJ8 video online, but I'm gonna take the opportunity to do another one, make some improvements, cover some areas a little better. So this being a 65, it's right in a transition point of between phase 1 and phase 2. It's still got a lot of the earlier phase 1 lights and all of that, and it's before it had there's no torque boxes there for that the later cars had. You can see it doesn't have the provisions for seat belts like later cars had. I've produced a complete full interior in the dark blue for this car, all my own patterns and products. So that we're going with the all leather option on this, which I produce all myself in-house. So I'll be showing you all that. Everything's upstairs ready to go for this. So start bringing things down. Now, of course, one thing that I'm gonna have to do early on with this is they hadn't yet prepped and painted and installed the top frame, as you can see. So I'm gonna have to get that. That's come separately. Here it all is here. That's the original top and frame. It all needs to come apart and have the frame sandblasted and painted in the gray color, including the drip rail piece, and all the wood components are in there. They're gonna have to come apart and be carefully inspected and then probably recovered in the off-white vinyl. I've got a whole new top seal kit for it. So that's all gonna have to be done, and then the frame reinstalled into the car before I can do any of the trim work back here, because that all kind of goes in after the fact. So yeah, got my work cut out for me. But as you can see, this car was restored by RWM on the mainland. Really great restoration shop. I've been getting more and more into Healeys and stuff, as well as all kinds of stuff, vintage stuff. But they've done a beautiful restoration here, really nice paintwork, and you can see they've already installed some sound and heat deadening material there, so it saves me from having to do that part myself, and I can just put my factory style jute mats in on top of that now. So ready to go. And also they've already I supplied them with the vinyl 6 months ago, so that they could install the dash and get that done with the dash top and the door cappings in the black, as they should be. All BJ8s had a black dash top and black door cappings, no matter what the interior color was. Whereas earlier BJ7s, it would have been color coded to the interior. BJ8s just went all black. And same thing, there will be a vinyl cover on that shift dome that was always black on BJ8s as well. You only see just the very top of it through the center console that goes over top of that. So yeah, got our work cut out for us. We'll get into it. Okay, so as you can see, they've just sent the original top and top frame all together. They just removed it from the car here, and yeah, sent the whole thing as an assembly. So I'm just starting to take it off. This was still attached to the top as well. This is the part of the rear drip rail, so the top actually clips to this all the way around this edge here. The top material comes around underneath, and there's little push-on clips it attaches to. So you install that to the rear of the top, and then this thing screws to the rear drip rail in the car. You can see going around the back there. So two corresponding pieces. So they've already got the drip rail in the car, and they've painted it body color with the car. That's all right. They're typically gray and are painted with the top frame in that gray color, but that's okay. You'll never see it once that corresponding part goes on there. You don't see any of it. So but yeah, this, you can see some of that gray there on the top frame, and of course this thing has still got the gray on it. So yeah, there are wooden cant rails here that were originally trimmed in an off-white color vinyl. You can see how filthy it is, but there they are there. And there's the header rail one in there. That's the steel frame screwed to the wood piece. This is all your old top seal here, just totally eaten away. It's normally a gray fabric with a rubber seal on the outside, so yeah, that fabric's totally gone. So I've got a whole new seal kit, and I'll be individually trimming all these wood pieces in the off-white vinyl. The frame's going to be sent out for sandblasting and repainting, and yeah, and of course all the chrome hardware for mounting it when you put the top up. Those are all going to be saved and cleaned up. Yeah, so we'll take it all apart and I'll show you what we got. And of course, now that I've removed that top seal, I'm just unscrewing these aluminum trim pieces. That's what the seal pushes onto, and these are screwed to these wood pieces. So got to keep all of our screws, bag them and tag them so we don't lose any hardware. It's very important with all this stuff. It's all, you know, sized for each different piece. So keep track of it all. It's all going to pay off in the end. And I just wanted to point out one thing, because I get asked this often. The screws that go to hold these wood cant rails onto the top frame were indeed painted gray with the top frame, so they blend right in. So yeah, just a little detail that people often ask me. What color were their screws? Were they painted or were they polished? Painted. Okay, so just going to show a couple before shots. So you can see they've done a nice job here, nicely painted everywhere. So yeah, a few things I'm going to have to do right off the get-go. Obviously I got to take out all the seat belts so that I can put in the carpets, and then I'll have to make the necessary holes through the carpets to clear the seat belts. These ones, it's bad location for a seat belt on a BJ8 because the rear quarter panel is going to come over and cover it. So it's going to have to be sticking out from underneath the rear quarter panel. I don't know if they can make like an L bracket or something like that so that it's actually, the belt is attached out past the quarter panel. I don't know. We're going to have to figure out something there, though. These ones are okay, obviously. But yeah, so that's one thing. So I'll get the seat belts out of there. They've also installed all of the alloy trim pieces, nice new ones, still with the plastic on. So the outer ones can stay, but these inner ones I'm going to have to remove temporarily, including the door seal here. I'm going to have to pull all that out of there so I can put in the sill carpets and kick panels and all of that stuff. And then the door seal goes in after. So we'll have to do that. So yeah, we'll get that done first, get the seat belts and those door seals out of there. And then I'm going to start by putting in the sill carpets. And over here you can see here's my complete Carvel carpet set. These are the toe board carpets and the sill carpets, and everything's there all pre-cut, ready to go. And here is my 1/4 inch jute underfelt set. So again, there's the toe boards, the rest of the toe board areas, the main floors that are done in jute. So everything's ready to go here. Okay, so just showing you, I've got the sill carpet all glued up using my spray gun with contact cement. I've given a liberal coating to both the sill and the carpet. I've got these undone here so that I can get the carpet under there. And yeah, I'm just gonna go about, and you can see how this tapers out. So, and the carpet itself is tapered out here. See, they are handed, so the wider taper always goes to the front. And you can see that one's already installed there. So I'm about ready to stick this one. And I always just kind of put it in so that the back just comes to that back edge there. And we've got just enough to come out to here on the top. Stick the top first and then bend it over. And there's lots of overlap onto the floor, so the floor mats cover that. So just showing you, I've stuck the top in, made a little slice there and a little slice here, and then I use my little scraper tool and slide it underneath the chrome there like that. They're underneath the aluminum. I usually use the butt of my scissors to push it into 90-degree corners like that. Okay, so now that that top edge is folded, I can start rolling it around and getting a nice tight bead just using my fingers. Okay, so coming right along here, you can see I've now got the toe board carpets in. So it's just a single piece that goes and it gets 90-degree bend in the corner. There's a cut that comes down from the top so that you can bend it on that angle, and then it just glues around. And as you can see, it does go under the tunnel. There's a rubber, like a foam rubber seal that pushes against the carpet there, nice and tight. So yeah, so that's how that finishes. And then the two just butt join right there. I've still got to cut the butt join. You can see it's a little bit lopsided, so I've got to cut it down to be the same level as the other one there. But yeah, so those are in on both sides, as you can see here. And yeah, so the next pieces to go in, and of course I've put the jute pieces in there beforehand as I was showing you. So the next pieces to go in here are rear bulkhead sections. So I've got to do foam on this upper area. There's a big foam, 1/4-inch foam that gets cut out around the seats and around the edges, and then a vinyl cover for that foam. So you do the vinyl first, and it just extends down here, glues to the steel, and then there'll be a carpet that goes up, and the carpet edge just comes up even with that straight line to finish that face, and then panels cover it all on either side. And then there's a big carpet piece that goes back here as well. So next piece is to do the foam and this vinyl. So now I'm just going to set the cushions in place and see how that looks. I used them to drill those holes just a few minutes ago. So I'll put them in place, and then we'll offer up the backrest. Oh, and I should mention, I did temporarily put the rear quarters in place. I just kind of set them in place to know that I've got clearance there for them when I was doing the locating of these cushions. So I'll show you what it looks like together. And there you go, just gently set in place. They're not bolted down or anything yet, but there's the rear cushions. So, and then I'll set the backrest in behind. So here is everything just fit in position, and just trying to locate where this is going to be going with the rear quarters in place, how they link up here. The rear quarter slides into these little brackets that are mounted to the backrest. And you can see how everything lines up here. And then of course the backrest has to just clear these rear cushions. It's butted right up against them at the back there. So I've drawn the lines, and having to elongate the holes a little bit that I drilled before to fit these cushions. But that's fine. So I've drawn the line, and yeah, and that helps me locate where these cushions need to go so that they fall just butted up to it. So it's lots of things to line up here, so you got to make sure you get all the pieces in place. Now, I just want to point out, I assumed that this car was a Phase 2 BJ8 because when the customer dropped off all of his steel components to be retrimmed, his center console and armrest were of the Phase 2 design. Shorter console, longer armrest. The Phase 1 design would be a longer console that comes back to here and has like a cubby box with a flip-up lid on the back of it, but it's much shorter than the Phase 2 style, the box, armrest. So yeah, I made him a pair of Phase 2 style rear quarter panels that have the cutouts for the adjustable springs on the back. So there would be a little box section there, and same thing with the carpets. So I had to remake the carpets there that don't have a cutout for that box, and I'm now going to have to remake these rear quarter panels, unfortunately, which, you know, sometimes these things happen. I assumed it was a Phase 2 from everything else. So, you know, 65 is the transition year, so yeah, I think this is it's a Phase 1, but the seats and console and everything he got for this car were all missing, and obviously came from a Phase 2, so that's what threw me off. So, we're working with what we've got. It'll be a phase one in every way except for the console and armrest, basically. So, yeah, interesting car, but really nice body and paint on it. And, it's going to be a really nice show car. So, in the meantime, I've got to, drill those holes and get the hardware purchased for those. I'm going to shift gears and install some of the vinyl covers that go in the front here. So I've cut and I've got that piece ready to go for around the handbrake. So it's just sitting there. I gotta pull it out and glue it. And then there's another piece that glues inside just on the passenger side in the toe board there behind the kick panel. And I've got it ready to glue up there. So, and then I can install the kick panels, which I've got on the floor here. Here's the pair of them. So yeah, and these kick panels, they've got a rear flap that is gonna, once you put the panel in, that rear flap glues around the flange there. So no metal is exposed. And then the door seal goes on top of it all to hold it all together. Okay, so there's that piece of vinyl glued in on the passenger side that goes under the kick panel. That's a cutout for right-hand drive cars so that you have a little bit of extra toe room there where the accelerator would be. All cars had it, whether it was right or left-hand drive, they had that cutout. So yeah, and then here's that handbrake piece glued in. So now I can carry on and I can put both of the kick panels in and the center tunnel carpet. Okay, so moving along, you can see I've got the wheel arch carpets in. They do a bunch of slices along here just to conform because the rear quarters will be up against it, so you only see the top of it. So I put those in first, and then I put in the rear carpet, and it just comes down and drapes onto the rear seat area, and that seam is right under where the rear backrest will be going. So you can see for this rear carpet, it tucks up underneath the drip rail all the way along. I supply it with those cuts already in it, so it's ready to just fold into position. I leave it a little bit long on the edges so you can get a nice perfect cut around the wheel arch there. And it goes under the drain tubes on either side, but over the center drain tube as original. So that's how they were done. And these rear seats are mounted and got the nuts started on the bottom, and I'm gonna have to jack it up and get under there to tighten them up. And when it does tighten up, you see this all compress and look perfect. So I've now got the rear quarters rebuilt. So I can go about installing those now with the rear backrest. Okay, and here are my rebuilt rear quarter panels installed. You got the phase one style there, so it comes right down to the floor, just enough clearance for the carpet. And as you can see, I've fit the tunnel carpet. I have yet to put the snaps in along the bottom sides to pull it tight, but it's located along the top, and got the console just screwed into the underside of the dash there, so it's located. And yeah, once I get these seats fully bolted in, then I'll put in the armrest and fully fasten the console there. But for now, I've been to locate all the holes and drill everything properly. I've finally got that all sorted, so everything's drilled and test mounted now. And so now I'm gonna take some of it out of there because once I get the top frame back from the painting, I'll have to remove these quarter panels and get the top frame all in there, and then I'll probably install the top and then bolt it all back up. But at least now we know it's gonna go together, so it'll be easy to put it all back together later. So yeah, I'm gonna proceed now with putting the snaps in the tunnel, get that tunnel all finished and the armrest mounted. And as you can see, I've put in the front kick panels. They're just sitting there now. I still have to put a couple screws in the passenger side one, and I still have to glue it along the rear flange. But you basically just, I'll show you how this goes. Sorry if I'm making you seasick. It's those top bolts there. You take those out. Suddenly the dash drops a little bit because that's what's holding the dash bracket through. But it goes through, there's a hole in the kick panel. You gotta stuff the kick panel in there. But it goes through, you gotta stuff the kick panel in there, and you know, once it's up through there, there's holes already in the panel itself that you gotta just poke the uppermost one. The other two are just to float over the nuts there. Sorry. The other two are just to float over the nuts for those two bolts, so the panel can sit flush. Yeah, but the top one goes right through the panel. You feed the bolt through there and do it back up. So now I've just got this edge of vinyl, which is gonna glue and wrap onto this edge, and then the door seal presses on to hold it on there tight. So, and the door seal presses onto that flange all the way along. Now, I've installed the 3 screws using the original holes in the rear quarter panel, and I test fit the door seal on there when I drilled those holes, so that there's a little bit of space there. So this is actually going to help hold the door seal onto this flange. So you got to make sure you consider all that when you're drilling, especially when you're drilling new holes. So you want it all to hold itself together, and everything kind of helps each other. So yeah, that's a lot of work done for today. I'm gonna carry on tomorrow with, like I say, finishing this tunnel carpet and getting the floor mats in, and yeah, we can proceed from there. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the tunnel carpet all installed with its row of snaps along the floor there. So if you ever want to take it out, it's just a case of lifting up those snaps. And on the driver's side, there's where you fill the gearbox oil. That is how you accessed it. It was just a case of lifting these snaps up, lifting the carpet up so that you could get to the little rubber plug in the top of the gearbox tunnel and fill your oil there without getting it on the carpet. But when the carpet's lifted out of the way, it helps you not get it on the carpet, so it's a good idea. Now here, yeah, so the floor mats are now in place. These under seat mats just had 2 snaps here and here in the back corners to keep it down, and of course, and then the rest of it's slotted for the seat tracks, and it goes underneath of the rear quarter panel. Now you can see I've got the rear quarter panel installed, and the door seal now installed. So I had glued that flange here, and kind of hard to see here. Hopefully the light will adjust. But yeah, so anyway, no visible paint here. That's why they did a flap of the vinyl coming off the kick panel to go onto that flange to cover that flange entirely. Earlier cars, before the BJ7s and 8s, had just this panel was trimmed separately, and so you might see a bit of an edge of paint here, so they would hand paint this edge so that you don't see any body color there. But then they stopped doing that and just made it a vinyl flap. So that's how that goes. Now, of course, I've got a pair of trim screws here that I have yet to install just on this kick panel. So the back half of the panel is installed as I showed you before, but there is where that cutout is that we put the piece of vinyl in earlier. You can see it there. There's a pair of trim screws, one on the bottom and one on the top, that hold that in place. So I've got to drill and install those through the panel, hopefully finding the original holes. And yeah, other than that, that's all finished. The main floor mats have their 4 snaps in the corners. So now the seats are ready to go in. Also, as you can see, I've put 1 seat in already, and I've installed the armrest with just slots under there and carefully slots down there, and it's got a pair of screws just in the bottom corners there to hold it in place. Okay, and just about to fit the door panel. So as you can see, the door capping's already pre-installed, and it's got the brush seal attached to it, and so it's all ready to go. And I've now added plastic vapor barrier. They all had it originally. It was like a thin black vinyl, but anything will work because you're never going to see it. It's in there. So yeah, just glued around the perimeter. It's going to protect your panels from moisture coming in from the windows. And then here's the panels ready to go. So I've just got to install, it's a series of panel clips that goes around the outside perimeter there. And then I've got the holes milled out for installing the handle hardware. So we can just offer it up and put it in position. And I should also add, there is a steel strip on the front that hooks on to this front flange. It hooks on like that, so you get that hooked on first and then put the panel into position and just go out pushing the clips into the holes going along the bottom, the side and bottom there. And they just press in, and then everything else goes in after. Now I've installed the door panels. As you can see, I have yet to put all the hardware and handles on, but yeah, so the hardware still has to go on there. I'm probably gonna have this panel off again to locate the holes in the top for the actual chrome handle, and then we'll put it all back together. So it's just fit so far, and we know it's gonna go well, so I can install the handles and hardware once I have them. The owner hasn't dropped them off yet, so that'll come later. Yeah, and as you can see, that armrest and center console are looking great. I had trimmed the shifter dome there as in black as original. They were always black. And yeah, and then just offered the console in, got it slotted in there. It's got some screws that go into that under dash there, and then another one in the back that just screws down into the tunnel. And then the armrest can slot in over top of it. It tucks under the edge here, and then very tight fit against the seats here, and with screws in the bottom corners. So that's how you fit all that. Of course, I think I already showed you, but there's a piece of vinyl that went on here to around the handbrake before the carpet was introduced. So yeah, and that driver's seat is just temporarily sat in to fit it, but yeah, everything's looking good. Obviously I've reinstalled the seat belts there. The owners just said to leave these for now. They'll have to locate and make new seat belt locations, but you know, I haven't made any modifications to the quarter panels, so they can just easily unbolt them and there's no harm done. Originally there would have been shoulder mountings in the back here, and those studs are no longer there because it's all new steel back there. So I don't know if he wants to try and reinstall them there. I think that would be a good idea, but otherwise you could do it perhaps into the sill here. I've seen people do that, or into the floor but out here, so it's not under the quarter panel. Okay, and just got the top frame back from the powder coaters, so they've done a beautiful job here. I just left it up to them to sandblast the whole thing, and after I had stripped it and given it to them. So they did a nice job of blasting and powder coating the pieces. And so you've got the main top frame, which folds up there, and then here's the rear drip rail piece, and then this piece is for holding the rear bow of the top in. It actually screws into this rear bow here. Or rivets, I should say. It's pop rivets. So yeah, those are all the pieces. So now I can offer this up to the car and get it bolted in place, and hopefully everything fits beautifully, and can get into putting in the webbing and the white vinyl covered cant rails, or off-white I should say, and getting it all put together. Okay, so finally just got the top frame mounted in the car. It's taken me much of the day to get it functioning properly because of the powder coating. I knew it might get sticky, and good recommendation for anybody who decides to powder coat their top frame. Powder coating is great for a top frame because it's nice and durable, and you know, it's going to last longer than paint. However, you got to be really careful with the pins, that this whole thing has to slide on that pin back and forth. So I had to carefully get in there with some paint stripper on a tiny brush and clean off the powder coat on the pins here and here, so that that can all move now. And now I've got it cleaned back and lubricated and working fine. I did this all on the floor of my shop before I even put it in the car. And now it's functioning beautiful. It's nice and smooth operation. I've lubricated everything, like I say. Yeah, it goes up and down nicely and fits beautifully. And so I've installed the off-white trimmed wood pieces. I did have to replace this front one with a new piece of wood. That's often the case. These things rot pretty badly. So it's a new wood there, but the side ones are all the original ones, all trimmed in that off-white vinyl. And I've now installed the chrome latch hardware and handle in the center. I've got it latched down. So now I'm ready to start doing the webbing straps, which you can see these bows are just hanging back here. There's different, I've got measurements to set the webbing basically, and it'll hold it all up like this. So we'll get the webbing straps installed and I'll show you the measurements for that, and then we can start fitting the top. Now another thing I'll just point out here is I've also trimmed the aluminum rail piece in Everflex vinyl. So when you get a new top, there's always a separate piece of Everflex vinyl, and it's for trimming this piece. So you trim it up first and then it screws to the wood. And when I put the topping on, the topping comes down here. Some people like to wrap it under, unscrew this thing from the wood and wrap it under. You can, it's not often actually what they did from the factory. They actually just came down and did your row of tacks along here and then just cut it, and there's a piece of hidem that covers over the seam and the tacks there. So that's how they were trimmed originally. So that's what we'll be doing. And meanwhile on the inside, you got all your top seal, and there's a rubber seal that glues in on top of here as well. BJ8's had a much better seal than all the other Heelys that came before. You know, it's just as technology advanced. So yeah, we'll show you all that stuff as they come to go on. There's also aluminum trim pieces that are going to screw to the bottoms of these wood pieces to correspond with that front one. And that front one, you can see it has, it's hard to tell here, but it has a lip there along the inside edge. You can see the lip right there. And so that is what the top seal is going to press onto that lip all the way along, and there's the corresponding lip on these aluminum ones that screw to the wood here. So that top seal will go right around and seal nicely. Okay, so just installing the cloth webbing straps. All Heelys had these light gray cloth webbing straps on their top frames. So on the BJ8, these are measured standard measurements. So I've written it in tape here. You can see from the front bow to the first bow is 20¼ inches, and that's to the center of the bow. This one is 10 inches once it's under tension with the top, 7½ inches to the rear bow. And you can see they go along the top, and then you've got these little brackets here for this bow that send it down, and it's 2 little screws holding that bracket. And then it's glued here, and that one piece that I've had painted will rivet over top of, and there's a flap zone inside of the top that glues to this rear bow as well. So once you get that inner top glued to the bow, there's a steel piece that rivets to cover all of this and hold it all together. So 7½ there to the rear bow, and then from the rear bow down to the body line. And this measurement is going to vary depending on where you're measuring. So it's where the actual webbing straps are that you're making these measurements. So because it would be wider in the middle because they are bowed. So make sure your measurements are where the webbing straps go, and you can tell where they go based on the holes that are here. And at the front, it comes just inside of those top latches, pretty much even with that. So it keeps it nice and straight and in line with the sides, as you can see there. So these are all important factors to think of. And so anyway, the last one here, that one was 7½. This one is 14½ to the body line there. So webbing straps are now installed. So now I can go about starting to install the top. Some people like to do it differently. So at the front here, the way that it's not attached here, it's only attached here and here. It floats over that one, and then here I'm going to be stapling this into the wood bow and cutting it off flush, and the top will cover over that. And I was going to also add that some people, you may want to install the top seals at this point too, which I might do actually. As I mentioned in the last part, I can screw in the aluminum trim pieces that go onto these woods, and then the top seal itself pushes onto those. Of course, there's going to be a separate piece here with a joint, and there's little rubber covers that go over the ends of the top seal to finish them where they join. So yeah, these back ones, because it has to fold, that's a separate piece, but this whole front section is one big piece that goes all the way around to these points on either side. So yeah, I can put in those aluminum trim pieces and put in the top seals. And then once the top seals are in there, then I can latch this all down for installing the rest of the top. Okay, so just putting on this gray top seal. I sell these, Right Way Heritage Trimming, if you want one. A complete set, and it's the right gray woven top seal that all BJ8s had with the top frame. BJ7s actually had this as well. And yeah, it just presses onto those aluminum trim strips that you can just see it there. I've screwed it to the wood there on the underside, and it's cut off flush even with the end there. And it's tricky to get it over the joint here between this piece and the side aluminum piece. You gotta work it in there. But so I'm still missing, there's a secondary rubber seal that's gonna tuck under this and glue in there. And it's like a bead seal with like flat rubber that glues in over top of to hide the aluminum there. And so to put that in, I'm gonna have to carefully lift this off, glue it in there, and then push this back on over top of it. And the bead seal goes along the outside of the windshield here. So I'm just waiting for that to arrive in the mail. You can get that seal from any of the big sources, AH Spares or Moss or wherever. So I'm waiting for one of those to come in the mail. But I've got this one on at least, so I can put this in position and latch it down and continue on with the top. And of course, I haven't stapled the webbing yet, so I'll have to put that back up and get it all stapled down. Okay, I apologize. I got way ahead of myself, and the top is nearly finished now. So I'll take you through the steps. Basically, once I had the frame on with the webbing installed, as I showed you before, I opened up the top, and on the floor, the first thing I do is install the rear drip rail, and I glue it with clips starting in the center. And this being a Robbins top, I always use Robbins on BJ8s. I know that it has 1 inch of material beyond. If you're looking at the cross section of the drip rail piece, it's like a J shape, upside down J shape that goes around. And the topping material has 1 inch of material beyond the top edge of that J to go in. And I just measure that and draw a line all the way around the bottom of the top, and then glue it and use those little press-on clips, the same type of clips as you use on the seats, to install the topping around that J thing. And then I offer the car up to the frame, and first thing I do is install, as I was mentioning before, you've got that tab that glues around the rear bow there, and then you've got this steel strip that goes over top of it that's pop riveted, helps hold it in along with the webbing. So I install that first, making sure I again mark center lines, start with the center, and then stretch it out as tight as possible out either side. And then I force that drip rail into position, lining up the holes using an awl, poking an awl through and pulling them down and putting them in one screw at a time. Back corners are always the hardest. But yeah, because we've got that at a set length, it's easier if you open up the top a little bit to relieve the tension, and you can get all those screws in all the way along. And as long as you've done the 1 inch all the way along the bottom edge there, it'll pull tight when you go to close the top again. And you go and close the top again, it pulls nice and tight. Well, close the top frame again and it at least makes that part tight. And then you pull it forward. And I usually just start with like a center one and 2 end ones. Again, it's all about center line. So you can see I drew a center line there and marked it the same one in here on the frame. Make sure that's all lined up. And then pull it out the sides, making sure you get it nice tight along there. Staple it off in here, and then I've now installed the aluminum trim strips there. One thing I did incorrectly was I pre-installed this aluminum trim strip, and I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have put that seal and stuff in yet, because you've got these tabs that go under it. So now that it's all set and in position, I've now got to open the top and remove that and get those tabs glued and stapled to the wood, and then put the aluminum and stuff back over top of those tabs. Now there's always some minor wrinkles still, I always find with these, and how I get those out with a combination. I use a heat gun to warm the top up nice and soft, and then I get in there with a wallpaper steamer and use steam from the inside, because it's cotton-based material. The Everflex, it's gray material, is cotton-based, and yeah, from the inside, if I use some steam, it'll shrink it right up nice. So we'll do that next, get all the wrinkles out, and then I can finish off with these seals and the Hydem strip on the front here that has little chrome finishers. Now, again, working my way out from the center, getting this nice and tight. Now, at the bottom here, I'm going to make a little cut along this edge, along the edge of this binding, and pull the binding up and underneath of the Hydem. That's how it's finished, and the little chrome tab covers the whole thing. So we'll get that done, and I'll show you the end result. Okay, and here's the top all finished. You can see I've got that bead of Hydem there with the little metal tips that cover over the edge of that binding. And yeah, that's all done now and fitting beautifully. I've gone and steamed it now. I've just opened the rear window because I'm about to fold it down now. Yeah, because now that the top's done, it's been done for a couple of days. I've let it get used to this position, so I'm gonna fold it down now so that I can finish the car by installing the boot cover, which covers the top when it's folded down. But yeah, very happy with how this top turned out. Like I was showing you earlier, those wrinkles came right out with just a little bit of steam, just 5 minutes and bingo. So yeah, looking really good, fits nicely. And yeah, I've got those door seals, the window seals installed inside, that gray fabric window seal. So looking really good. So we're gonna fold it down like I say now and install the new boot cover. Okay, so I've just folded the top down, and I just wanted to show you, like I always, when I'm folding a top down on a BJ8, I always undo the back window first and let it drape into the top well there. It helps protect it and prevents it from getting badly creased. You really want to protect that. So I always, undo the back window, lay it in there nice and gently without any creases, and then fold the top back. Now, when you fold the top back, it's crucial, the flaps here on the side, you want to gently tuck in so they don't get kinked, because they often get kinked, and when you put the top back up, they're going to stay that way. And then the other thing is, you can see I pull the topping out, at least the front section of the topping. I pull it out like this, so that it's not bunched up under the top, and making sure we're clearing here, getting it around those corners nicely. And yeah, so you've got this extra topping. So when I put the boot cover on, I'll fold this over like this. And that's how we stow it. Now, you can see I've got these gray top seals. I have yet to now that I've got it folded down, there's little rubber end caps. There's like a right and left profile. So those have just arrived in the mail here. You can see here's these little rubber end caps. You get them from all the regular sources, Moss or AH Spares or A-Head for Heelys. They all carry them. And so yeah, you get the right and left hand sides, and they, I use crazy glue usually. They will go on to the ends of these to prevent that from fraying and keep it nice and tight. And I usually have to do a little cut. I'll take like a little pair of super sharp fine scissors or even a razor blade, and if you look at the inside of it, I cut that section out and just make a little slot there so that it can go over it properly, basically. So that's one thing I do with every one. I just cut out that little part there, not through the backside of it, but just cut it down to the backside of it, and then leave a little slot, and it'll fit over that nicely. And now, yeah, so you got the gray top seal that you seals the side windows and seals the inside of the windshield there. And now for the rest that seals on the outside, that's going to cover this, I've got this secondary seal. Again, just came in the mail, but that's its profile. Excuse my dirty fingers. But yeah, it just glues in any kind of window sealant. Black sealant is what I usually use. And yeah, I'll just glue it in there with the bulb, right in that crevice. And then the flat part kind of tucks under this. And yeah, so we'll get that installed. I'll show you what it looks like all finished, and then put the top back up. Now, other final details here I'm doing. You can see we've got our rear backrest here. I've got those snaps all installed along the top rail for the boot cover. And how this works is you've got these snaps that you undo, which I'm sure anyone who has a BJ8 knows. You've got this rear backrest that unfolds like this with these slide bolts. That's what those escutcheons are for, to clear those slide bolts. And another thing a lot of people don't know is that this back panel of the rear backrest is actually comes down and dips in, and there's little metal, see how that dips in, and there's little metal brackets to curve it. So it actually has to curve at the bottom here. So I always take these boards and soak them wet with water before they're trimmed, and it's just the masonite hardboard. I soak that area, both sides, with water, and I have like a little curved thing that I clamp in place to put that bend in it so that it'll clear these side bolts. If you don't do that, if it's just a flat panel, this thing wants to stick out, and it puts a lot of tension under the snaps, and it makes it want to pop off and fall down. So it's important to have that. So this unfolds twice, and these slide bolts you unslide them, and they go into corresponding slots on the quarter panels, which I have now marked, and I'm just going to cut the holes and put in the little chrome female escutcheons. You can see the other one there ready to go. Those panels are already in the wooden panel that I provide, so I've just got to cut it through the vinyl and put the screws through to finish it off. So, okay, and there we are with the shelf open, and you can see those locks there are locked into position. I've got the corresponding female parts on the quarter panels like that. So that's how that rear shelf assembly works. So looking really good, so I can fold that back up, and that's it for this whole rear seat area now. I've got all the details done. You can see I've got this rubber seal now glued into the header rail. I just got a couple clamps on the corners where it was not wanting to stick as well. So once that has had some time to dry, then we'll be all done. Okay, and there is the boot cover fully installed. So it's 6 10x snaps going around. So you got the side corners here, these back corners here, and then there's these straps that come around and fasten there. You can see, you pull this over, and then this strap sneaks around, and there's a 10x right there on the quarter panel. So yeah, So that looks great. And of course, then there's 3 just regular button snaps that go into corresponding snaps on the rear backrest, the top rail of that. So yeah, looks wonderful. This obviously being the same topping material as the top, which is English Everflex vinyl, which all Heelys used as the topping material. So yeah, it's nice and waterproof. But you know, Everflex only comes in 1 shade of blue, 1 shade of red, 1 shade of green, etc. So it always looks a little different than the rest of the interior color, especially with blue. It's one of those colors. But yeah, that's how they were. So, and last but not least, I've made a pair of our overmats that have the non-slip backing on them, and they're bound around, and it's just a matching piece of Carvel. So these are cut to fit, so I can just slide them in place there. Just like turning the camera at the same time. There they go. A perfect fit. So there it goes. Excellent. So, and then the driver's side one has the Austin heel pad sewn into it. Just like this. So that one's got its overmat in now. So that's it for that. That concludes this interior. So it's looking really good. Really happy with how it all turned out. So I'm gonna call that the end of our video here. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've learned some things if you're trying to do the trim on your BJ8. Of course, everything you saw here is produced in-house. I make it all by hand, following original patterns, and it's all available through my business, Right Way Heritage Trimming. So until next time, I'm Jeff Chrysler, owner of Right Way Heritage Trimming and a detail enthusiast. We'll see you again.